Okay, I'd like to open up the floor for questions.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. I think what you were trying to ask Anna and Brian is that just like how when people use the pharmaceuticals and they get kidney failure and all the other diseases, trying your diet, would they end up with these diseases? Isn't that what you're trying to ask when you ask the question? So I think
Just how much better off would they end up being? If
yes. So
Well, what everyone always wants you to do is give statistics, and I'm not foolish enough to do that. I'll repeat what I said before. Stephen said, can you prevent 95%? Now, my inclination is to say yes, because that's what I've seen. But I'm not sure in every case it's 95%. It's certainly in 100% of the cases very close to the vast majority will prevent disease by eating correctly.
Okay, see,
what just like how when you take medicines, you get the side effects. What he's saying is that
Yes.
does eating your food give side
Oh, no.
effects?
Yeah, the side effect is health and happiness.
yes, yeah,
That's the side effect. I used to be nasty before I ate this way.
that's been proven.
Now look at.
There's a nurses study, as kidneys are a vascular system, a huge nurses study, they do those, came out years ago, and they said there is no better diet than a vegan diet.
Yeah.
No better diet for any form of kidney problems. So
this
we're not
nurse-
going to create kidney problems.
This nurses study she talks about that was done up in Boston is remarkable. The amount of data, and I'm still quoting the nurses study decades later. I mean, they did it
Yeah.
in my new book, Sweet Disease, that will come out by the autumn of this year, where I critique how we absolutely know that sugars, including fruit, cause cancers and osteoporosis. I mean, overwhelming data on this now. Even berries, by the way. Having sugar.
Yeah.
One of the studies were done that showed the average amount of sugar that North Americans and Europeans eat, the heart disease rate doubled. But here's the interesting part. As you increase that, which is several tablespoons of sugar a day, the more you ate sugar, the higher that went. So you didn't double it, you went 60%, 70%, 80%, higher and higher and higher. Yes?
Right. Hello.
Is that on?
I'm always on. Is it on?
There you
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I hear you guys saying is that if we go on this program and we stay on this program and we develop our own well-being and we're a service and contribution and we get our pee-pee going, then that we will be able to sustain our well-being long-term and pass generation to generation. Yes?
That's the most important thing that
Yes.
was just said. It's not only for us, it's for our children, our offspring, our grandchildren, etc.
Right. And so that's what I'm interested the most in, because our children are our future.
Yes.
And without having these young girls be healthy and strong enough to have healthy children, then that whole scale is going to come down, right? So we really want to be healthy adults and healthy youth so that we have healthy children in the future. Now, I have to ask this question because you didn't ask questions with the last panel. And I'm left with, there's a lot of stuff going out there. Some of it is very, very scary. And we can do this, we can do the food and, be positive and exercise and meditate and love our people and serve humanity. And at the same time, we can do that, and that's not going to save the world, so to speak, with everything that's being presented here, and we haven't heard everything yet. So is the question to save the world or to save humanity?
The question is to save yourself, which saves the world and saves
Yes.
humanity.
Yes.
You save yourself, and that's it. Bottom line is, we have this philosophy and ideology that's incorrect, that we think we can externalize, that we can control others and change others. The only influence you really have, and this is true, is over your own life. And when you take that and become passionate in that life, and you start to become a contributor, you can influence other people, but not for the intent of influencing them, but the joy of sharing. That's it. So how we're going to change it, and I think this panel was brilliant. I mean, let's congratulate them again. The question that Stephen asked, the last question, I love their answer. This is the greatest challenge that humans have ever had, and I think we're going to meet it. I know we're going to meet it. I see every day people coming back from the dead, so why can't we save the planet? We screwed it up so we can fix it.
So then it begins then with taking care of ourselves, doing this program, sustaining it, keeping our PP alive, taking care of our community, and then looking to see how we can serve in any initiative out there that's going to contribute to the saving of our world.
Absolutely. It starts with us.
All right, let's do it.
Hello. I'm a perfect example. I've been through the program. I lost 12 pounds. I felt great. I felt healthy. I felt energetic. And then when I left, I went back to the good old lifestyle.
The bad old lifestyle.
The bad old lifestyle. So I'm here absolutely for a refresher. And in the 2 days that I'm here, I feel like the same energy again that I felt and got from Hippocrates. So my question to you, if I'm not ready for totally dramatic, raw, totally again, what's your belief these days between the raw and some cooked foods? Like if I want to make a cooked sweet potato or cooked oats or whatever, I want to know your opinions on that. Maybe it's changed.
So that's perfectly fine if you're healthy. You know, I mean, see, what we find is that if you're healthy now and you want to go back on a vegan diet so that now there is no more eggs, eggs suddenly became so popular. I don't know how that happened.
Good advertising.
Yes. And so get off all of that, get off all the dairy products, and then take step by step. Start adding salads, bigger salads as each week goes. And you are going to crave more and more salads. This is what happened to even children that come to the Institute. They look at our buffet and they're like, yeah, right, it's not going to happen. And then you give them, they give some fruit, we give some cooked cereals, we give some steamed vegetables, and usually by the second week, hey, give me some of that. And you start looking at that buffet and it starts being more attractive to you. So you might have to go that way, and that's fine. And there's a lot of great food that are vegan. I mean, you have, see, for example, when we have beans, let's say I want chickpeas, then I can soak them in a bowl of water. So I get rid of something called an enzyme inhibitor, so I even can digest the protein within. And then I can sprout it either in a jar or just in a colander. And I rinse it twice a day. And now it has a tiny little tail, and I actually broke down the protein to amino acids by doing that. I broke down fat to fatty acid and carb to simple sugar. Now it's an easy food. So now I could either eat it raw or I could cook them if that's what I want to do. I could make hummus or dips with it.
And do you feel all sprouts are equal, or do you feel one is better than another?
We're equalitarians.
Thank you.
Depends upon what sprout.
Thank you.
Let me mention this to you. A lot of you listening may think, you've put us on a pedestal. We eat a little cooked food,
Yes.
so you know that. Yeah. For decades, I know. For decades, and I think it's a smart thing because if you completely arrest the food, then you get away from it. Because if you keep taking little bits of it, you keep jumping back into it, jumping back. Just cut it and then go forward. Mm-hmm. But we eat a little cooked food. And we did the science on this when we were in Boston. We had all these wonderful professors and researchers that used to volunteer from MIT and Tufts University, et cetera. And we realized that once you're healthy, you've conquered your disorder, and we know your immune system's functioning, up to 20-25% of your diet can be cooked, plant-based, organic, vegan food. Now remember, you are creating an acrylamide problem, and you are killing the phytochemicals and the vitamins. You are killing that. But that little bit of recreational food with healthy bodies, we've recognized, doesn't really substantially change the immune system. But what's really interesting, you go up 5%, and the study showed, we looked at this 3 different ways, that 17.5% or so of your immune system is compromised. You go up 10%, 48% of your immune system is compromised. So cooked food in healthy people weakens your immune system, but minimal amounts in healthy people really doesn't do a big amount to cure problems.
And start making those juices, those green juices. They're amazing to fill you up so that you don't need
with the sprouts.
candy and
Remember,
junk.
the sprouts are the key in those things.
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, Mr. and Miss Dr. Clement. How are you?
Good.
Oh, I don't know. Can you guys, is this on?
You have to talk loud.
It's on? Yes. Okay. Migraine. I've had it my whole life. I've taken enough medication that I'm comfortable with. I'm done with that. I don't want to take any more. Sometimes it's necessary. I live an active life, yes, lift weights. I eat healthy too. Sometimes raw juice is not enough. It's a goal, I'm working on it. What's your best advice? Like, best thoughts to anyone with them. Yours sounded quite severe. It's very challenging and trying to get out of them.
Yeah, so I had them, and the thing is, it could be very structural. I had to work with anything that I could find structurally, doing atlas work. Did you ever do atlas work?
It's called NUCCA, N-U-C-C-A.
It's amazing.
Upper cranial work.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Out of all the things,
Yes.
cranial reconstruction or NUCCA, if you write that down later.
And obviously, medication has a rebound effect. The migraines get 10 times worse the longer you take them. So eventually you realize, I can't keep taking that. What can I take that's natural? Of course, acupuncture can help. White willow is where aspirin was made from. They took white willow into laboratories and they made aspirin out of it. So white willow is something we could take. Our guests often take that and can see a cut in their headaches and migraines pretty immediate. But then is because half your immune system is from your gut, and you know when you have a migraine, you feel it in your gut, and you know that that has to be cleaned off. I would be on a 100% raw food diet, take all the fruits away.
Sugars, get the sugars out.
Yes, all the sugars.
But we find out there's other research that says berries are cardioprotective or anti-cancer properties. It's interesting.
They are, but you can get the seeds of the berries and eat them. That's where the antioxidants are. So that's what we did a number of years ago, because two of my colleagues were part of the Tufts University studies, and these are good guys, and I trusted every word they said. And berries do have these antioxidants, but they also have massive amounts of sugar. So the sugar is the problem, certainly when you have your kind of concern. The other thing is, your gastrointestinal, large intestine, even small intestine may be implicated in this. Yeah. We find that about 40 to 50% of the people who have migraines, that's where the epicenter is. And the brains of the body are in the brain itself and in the gastrointestinal tract. You have more neurons in the gastrointestinal tract than you have in the spinal cord. So that's why, for instance, when you were like me and had a test to take, but you didn't study for it, and you got sick to your stomach, that's because the brain in the stomach was saying, you idiot. Maybe that's what's happening with a lot of these migraines, bad things in there.
Yeah, and stress, Stress is a big part of this.
Thank you.
So maybe
Yes,
you're in
welcome.
a situation you need to change something,
Definitely.
One last question here.
Yeah, you mentioned water, and I'm asking this on behalf of a friend of mine. She'd like to know what kind of water specifically you suggest or promote.
Well, we don't promote anything. We give you the facts. When we were doing research for a lot of our books and contributions, for instance, Killer Fish, I was rudely awakened, although I knew this at some subtle level, that there's not a drop of water that we drink on Earth that's not highly contaminated. And the problem is that the usual suspects are easy to take out. They have large molecules, so fluoride, chlorine, a halfway filter can take those out. But what they don't take out, even $10,000 filters, are plastic and pharmaceutical drugs. That these are nuance. They're smaller than atoms. So unless you happen to be wealthy, independently wealthy, where I could give you the name of somebody that customizes a filter system for your whole house that runs thousands of dollars, then distillers by far are the best way to assure that you're getting pure water. Now, the naysayers about distillers, it's going to rob minerals out of your bones. I, by default, because when I began to do this, distilled water was the thing. I have bones that are strong like a 20-year-old boy. in my 60s. It does not do that. If you're getting minerals from your food, which you're eating this way, you're certainly getting minerals from your food. You don't have that concern. The other thing is, water's more important food than food you chew and swallow. You can only go 4 days without water. You can go months without food before you die. Oxygen's actually more important than water, but the fact is that water's mostly oxygen. And when you look at all of that, if you're sick, organized, structured water, like somebody here doing, I'm a big fan of this, but you have to make sure that water's pure before you structure it. A lot of these systems don't have any filters on them. So you're actually putting structured water, which enhances absorption of water into the cell, and it also has fluoride, chlorine, and everything else we've just mentioned in it. So you've got to have clean water and structure it if you're going. Now, I'm not a major fan of structured water on a consistent basis for healthy people, though. Yeah.
Why?
Because it overcharges the cell and can create free radical damage.
Hello. So thank you again. I can't say enough thank yous for this conference. I had a concern and a question. You spoke in your webinars, you've spoken several times about the benefit of fenugreek sprouts for the digestive tract and how soothing and healing it can be for irritable bowel syndrome, et cetera, et cetera. In addition, I know that at the Institute you have discontinued using Rejuvelec, made from wheat berries.
Oh, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a while back. I know, it's a while back. I had, for years ago, I was drinking it and stopped for years too, and now I started making it again. What is exactly your concern? I was never quite clear on it.
Well, you said two things. Number one, the real truth about health not only holds conferences yearly, but Stephen, my partner, and I also do monthly webinars.
Exactly.
And we put slews of information. The kind of things that you're finding out here on an ongoing basis, the latest science on the environment and health are being written on there. And there's 200 hours of me speaking on different subjects. And you can Google it so that if you come up with, cancer, it will come up or what you're speaking about. Now, number two, you're bringing up something that was brought by our founder from Eastern Europe. You can go from Eastern Europe up to Bavaria in Germany and find that a common drink is where they take water, they put grains in it with the concept and the idea that it ferments and you have good bacteria in it.
Right.
And we were doing that at Hippocrates and brought it, and it was a
Right.
great concept. And then in 1980 or 81, there were 4 of us in the world that were raw food experts. Ann Wigmore was one. The other 3 of us were in the room. And I looked at them and I said, do you drink Rejuvelec? They went down. Do you drink Rejuvelec? They looked at. They said, how about you, Big Mouth? I didn't either. We were teaching you to drink Rejuvelec and we were not drinking it. And there happened to be a guy that was working at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst then, that said, well, let's test it. And so 2 weeks later, he called me back and said, well, let's rename it from Rejuvelec to Rejuverot. Because we found out that under the great conditions we were growing it in, it was riddled with bad bacteria in many batches. And you're not going to get the full spectrum of bacillus bacteria that the intestine warrants.
Okay.
From supplementation, you can do that. And even at best, if it wasn't bacterial riddled, you would not get everything, and just 1 or 2 bacteria are out of balance. Now, on the other hand, the 5 blue zones, and Loma Linda is one of these places, show that 4 of those blue zones, one of the reasons potentially that they live longer is they all eat some form of fermented food. So this gentleman also tested sauerkraut, which, by the way, is perfectly fine.
Perfect.
Now, the only time we tell you not to eat raw sauerkraut that only takes 3 days to make is when you have candida or fungal or yeast problems. Once you've put that under control, eating it is actually going to help prevent it, which is interesting.
Right.
But Rejuvelec has not been part of Hippocrates' program for over
a
30
long
years.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, instead of the Rejuvelec, in addition to, say, fenugreek, what else would you suggest to support?
Well, we have the latest science on this one. About 3-4 years ago, they began to talk to me. I'm a little slow sometimes. It took me till 1.5 years ago. And there's a new technology called Probiotics, that there's a product called Life-Give Instinct that is literally 13 independent studies show that it's 100% absorbable into a cell. Now, most of the vegan or plant-based probiotics, or certainly lactose biotics, if you get 20 or 30% uptake, that's good. So this is remarkable new technology. So it's called Life-Give Instinct, and we have them 200 billion. Most people don't need that unless you have problems. We also make one for the vaginal health. That's there, and so that would be our suggestion. You only need one a day unless you had some outrageous need.
So that's from the Life Gift line that you have at Hippocrates.
Yes, we phased out the last technology we had and put in the latest technology.
The Astro.
It's not called Astro. Once again, it's called
Instinct.
Life-Give Instinct.
Oh, Life Gift. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, got
And
it,
the
got it.
technology is Astrobiotic
Okay.
technology.
Okay, so, and one last thing. I found, in New York, the Union Square Market, I sometimes buy my sauerkraut there, sometimes I make it myself. But their sauerkraut, they tend to add, the farmer that I get it from, the farm people, they add salt to it in the process of making it. I prefer it because I learned how to make it from Ann Wigmore without salt.
Right.
So, but sometimes if I'm in a hurry or whatever, I haven't made it myself, I get it from them. What's your take on that, with the salt added? I just rather...
Well, if you don't have cardiovascular disease, a little bit of
Disease.
salt occasionally is not going to kill you.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, the reality is if you have a sodium concern, yes, you should avoid it.
Okay, thank
Great.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me just mention before the next person, at the realtruthabout.health.com, not the Real Truth About Health conference, just the realtruthabout.health.com, there's a section called interviews, and Brian has done 150 plus interviews. They're 100% free, and if you ever want to pick your topic and want to get more information, like what's the difference between walnut oil and avocado oil and flax oil and hemp oil, and you really want the details on any particular thing, there's 150 different interviews on different subjects that are all free, where Brian is answering all your questions. Thanks.
Yes, and we're going to hold on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th New York City conferences upcoming very soon, too.
Hello. I'm very proud and honored to be a product of your Life Transformation Program.
You're a nice-looking product, by the way.
Thank you. I'm an alumni of 1 year. And you have other programs at Hippocrates Institute that I'm very proud to be part of. One of them is the Dr. Days program, which I hope you will say a few moments to the audience about what that's about. And also, I had the immense pleasure of working with Dr. Jan Ranicky at the Cancer Comprehension Wellness Program, which talks about psychoneuroimmunology. Thank you. Very exciting programs. I want to thank you for putting those together. I think they were not available when I was an alumni last year, and neither was the Dr. Days program to this extent. So please, I'd like you to comment on those.
Well, before you leave, Jackie is a physician herself, and she was told by some pretty prominent doctors that her life was over. She has advanced, or had, I should say, advanced stage 4 cancer. And through her lifestyle, she's reversed that. So let's give Jackie a hand.
Thank you.
So now on to it. You know, about 2 years ago, Caroline Bryant, who accompanies me sometimes when I'm traveling around North America. Where's Caroline? Stand up.
Stand up.
Give you a hand.
My co-founder in Dr. Days.
My friend and colleague, she was talking with me, and I said, you know, one of my dreams are that we should be bringing doctors here to Hippocrates and giving them crash courses. Now, most physicians are really busy, and so to get away for even a week is hard. So Caroline took the ball and ran with it, and Jackie joined her in recent months. And we've had 4 programs, and we're going to have 3 more programs this year. And the last group, we had 25 doctors, I think, in it, from all over the world. We've had doctors from 4 or 5 countries come, all over North America, Canada, they've come from. And we give them an insight into the work we've done for 60 years. Because we intend to be transparent. We don't have anything that we're ashamed of. We are proud, not because we've done anything great, we're proud to expose nature. We're proud to expose the power that is in our hands once we do what we're supposed to do. And so the next one is coming up August, I think. Do you remember the dates? So the 27th, 28th, 29th of August in 2015, if you're listening. If you're a physician anywhere in the world, you're invited to come. So give Caroline a call, get on the Hippocrates website and look that up. We have very close colleagues that occasionally we've, in the past, taken Hippocrates program, gone and rented places around the world and done 1- and 2-week Hippocrates programs, minus my wonderful team. You know, these are sort of like abbreviated programs, and we've done them in California quite a bit. And one of our colleagues, Dr. Raneke, who worked as a partner, a business partner, business is a bad word to say, a colleague of Carl Simonton, one of my heroes, an oncologist who back in the 70s realized that the only people that were pretty much surviving the treatments he was giving them were people with childlike optimism. And he studied and created the new field of visualization. And Dr. Raneke, who has a PhD in psychology, joined him and traveled the globe with this wonderful human being and learned the power of visualizing your well-being, manifesting healing in your own body. So we began to talk, Janet and we, probably 3 years ago, and it finally last year came to fruition. So now several times a year, and it may grow, we have the Comprehensive Cancer Program, where we have our team from California, which includes an oncologist, a very long-term integrative or natural healthcare physician, and my good friend Janet comes in, and it is just remarkable when we can put PP people together.
And her husband, who's an author and medical doctor, Dr. Gallitzer.
Absolutely, Dr.
Yes.
Gallitzer, a long-term alternative doctor. And so when you see, when we have at Hippocrates this remarkable life transformation program that we emphasize psychology as well as everything we've talked about, and then we can really spend hours more on top of that, working individually with people and bringing in the latest technology. We have NewCom technology. We're part of a research project with Harvard at this point. And this new technology, literally, even if you don't want to get into a state of alpha or beta, it puts you in it. And it's a little tiny device that you pretty much stick on. You'd say, how could this do anything? And 100% of the cases, 100% of the cases, they've tested this on hundreds and thousands of people. It puts you into a beta state that people have to be long-term deep meditators, which I'm not, by the way, to get to that state just by sticking this on. So we're always interested. It's called NewCom technology. But again, at Hippocrates, this is one of the many technologies we use. We use cold lasers, we use electromagnetic, we use cyberscan, we use undermed, we use H-wave. I've been for 35, 40 years interested in the future of healthcare. And the future of healthcare is not going to be chemistry. It's going to be electromagnetic frequency. That's where the entire future of healthcare is going. So thank you for...
I wanted to add, I brought my NewCom unit with me because of the conference, so anyone wants to see it, I have it with me.
Well,
Yes.
get with Jackie if you want to see this
Thank you so
incredible
much.
device. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations again. Okay. Jackie and David. David, please stand up for a minute. David had stage 4 cancer. With all the thousands of people I've worked with who have had stage 4 cancer as a nutritionist, nobody's been sicker than him. Maybe a few equally sick. He was so sick when he was eating food, it was coming out his back because the nuclear medicine had actually burned a hole into his membrane, his skin. And so that was 2007 you came to us. Why don't you come up to the microphone for a minute and speak about that? Because a lot of listeners out there around the world may not know that these are real stories. These are real human beings, and I'm proud of these people.
And David was in hospice.
David, yeah, he checked out a hospice and came to us, but he didn't let us know that.
Well, first I want to give credit to God.
Yes.
Second, I want to give credit to Ann Wigmore, who fostered you,
Yes.
and you carried the torch. and you've done an excellent job. I can't think of two people in the world I love more. You know, not because specifically they're them, but what they've done is they've loved other people, and they've caused this domino effect that is huge, you know? So anyway, in 2001, I got stage 4 cancer in my lymph and my pelvis and my armpit, and I had tumors on my bowel, couldn't go to the bathroom. I was 121 pounds in a wheelchair. The oldest living member of hospice in 2 counties, Hillsborough and West Palm Beach.
Put the mic up close.
And, you know, Brian said that our most intimate relationship with is food. And I have to say, I think one that's more intimate is our thought. You know, because the only one that really knows your thoughts is you and God. And stress is the #1 killer. And I, you know, want to tell you that when I was 13, my addict, womanizing father divorced my mother, and he took me with him. Now, if you know anything about addicts, they don't take people with them because they're all about them. But the reason he took me is because he thought if he left me, my mother would kill me. So that's kind of the abuse that I had. And that abuse led to me coming to be 19 years old, living on the street, being a drug addict, with a spirit of murder towards God, myself, my mother, and everybody else. I was an equal opportunity hater. And when I went and saw Brian, you know, he looked at all my charts and stuff, and he's sitting behind this big desk, you know, I'm like 130 pounds, and I'm like, and he says, oh yeah, we get rid of this all the time. And I'm like, oh my God, I joined a cult. Because I mean, I was sick, and he was like, oh yeah, there's no problem. I said, well, obviously you're not inside me feeling what I'm feeling. And then the next sentence he said, but you got to get rid of the anger. And he didn't even know me. And the anger obviously was, you know, very, very obvious to somebody that's seen thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And so I want to tell you that I don't think people really get this. They've been doing this for 40 years. For 40 years, day after day after day, they've seen sick people die, and sick people get well, and sick people get well and go out and get sick and come back. And so, I mean, do you really need clinical studies and double-blind blah, blah, right? Really? So anyway, when they gave me the chemo, they burned my arm, which I'll be happy to show you if you want to see it, and it burned off half my stomach. And in the process of, well, when it first started, I started coughing, and this is in 2001, and my spleen was swelling up from thumb size, normal size, to a gallon of milk. Nobody knew, and I was coughing all the time. And so long story short, they took my spleen out, it burst, it was trying to contain the cancer. And so I was glad because I stopped coughing. I'd been coughing for a year. And so it burned off my stomach, and then when my stomach grew back, it had a fistula on it, which is a cup. And this doctor was telling me from the minute he met me that I was going to die. I was going to die tomorrow, I was going to die next week. I call him every week to see how he's doing. I mean, every year. And so anyway, he told me that, you know, I was going to drown in my own fluids and I needed a chest tube. I was about 125 pounds, and I didn't really want to live. I was tired, you know, but my wife at the time wanted me to do it, so I got the chest tube in. And then a couple of weeks later, because I was on the maximum amount of drugs and a stupor, I stepped on the chest tube and pulled it out. And so now the fistula is communicating to my back, and food and drink are coming out of my back. And I was a little bit of a hot mess, right? I had chicken pox, I had Epstein-Barr, I had Bell's palsy, I had 4 blood transfusions, and I had 3 abdominal surgeries, and probably a bunch of other stuff I don't remember because I was kind of like not present. But then they sent me to hospice because they were done with me. Cost about $1 million of your taxpayer money. Thank you very much. And about 3 years later, I'm riding my Harley and I start having ocular migraines. And if you don't know what an ocular migraine is, it's a lack of oxygen to the ocular nerve, and you see starbursts in a mild case. In a heavy case, I went through that to my eyes feeling like they're crossing and getting dizzy, which is a really bad combination on a Harley. So that forced me to go back to the doctor, and that took me to understand that I had cancer again. Well, the cancer I had was in both my kidneys, and I had an 8-centimeter tumor on my spine that disabled me from walking. And the doctor told me, you're going to die right away. And it was a year later before I couldn't walk. So they're trained to scare you into doing chemo. And that's what they do. And when I got to Brian, I had neuropathy in my feet from the chemo and the radiation. And I was on the H wave. I had, what do they call it, hypertension on my feet. And Anna Maria did live blood cell.
Dave, let's try to move
Okay.
it, maybe
Okay.
wrap it up. Okay.
And so she told me things that she couldn't have known by looking at it, and Florida stopped her from doing that, which is a travesty. And so it's been 8 years, and as you can see, I'm in terrible health. And I really appreciate it.